I saw a comment recently where someone said they are tired of interacting with women and called it women fatigue. The comment has thousands of upvotes, so I assume others have similar experiences and stories. What is yours? In case you do not feel the same, please try not to invalidate someone else's experience. Story 1. I think I had something similar with my female friends. I found that they would only message me or reply when they wanted help with something I was good at. Then they would be very quick to respond and eager to chat. But when I checked in just to see how they were or for a friendly chat, I never heard back. I was left hanging without a reply. This seemed to be the case with most of my female friends, so I stopped messaging them altogether and, as it turned out, I never heard from them again. Except for one time when one of them messaged me after months out of the blue, acting interested in how I and my family were doing, only to ask for help finding work. I know not all women are like that, but the ones I befriended were. I am done with that. My male friends are not like that. Story 2. Ended a long-term relationship 5 years ago and have been single by choice ever since. If that is not women fatigue, I do not know what is. Story 3. Too many to share from my early to mid-20s, especially. My personal favorite, though, isn't even something that happened to me, it was what I overheard. I was casually seeing this girl a few summers back, and she and her friends had a spare ticket to go to a concert. It was supposed to be 4 girls, their 2 boyfriends, and me. Of course, the 2 boyfriends dropped out last minute, so I ended up being the only guy in a girl group. No matter. I grew up in a house full of women, sisters, 1 brother, and no dad around. I know how to stay quiet and let them have their version of locker room talk while I smile and act like a houseplant. The other 3 girls were talking about when they went out to a bar the night before. They were discussing a cute group of guys who bought them drinks. They talked about how nice one was and the fact that one was a cute Irish boy, enough to know they must have talked to these guys for quite some time. I asked them how it turned out afterward. They said, "Oh, we left right after." I asked, "Did you at least get their number or something? Seemed like you hit it off." One of them replied without skipping a beat, "Oh no, we just wanted drinks and didn't want to have to pay for them. He was nice, but he wasn't tall enough for me anyway." Another said, "You should see her at bars. She's a real heartbreaker." They all laughed, including the girl I was seeing. In that moment, I remembered so many days in college running around like an Energizer bunny trying to get girls, and I imagined how dumb that probably looked if the girls I was talking to back then were thinking like this the whole time. I stopped seeing the girl from that group about a week later. Story 4. It's too much to list. Mostly, they see themselves as victims of everything, even things they never personally experienced. They say they know someone, which often means they watched a social media video and now have an excuse to be unpleasant, and you have to deal with it. Story 5. Where I live, there used to be a place called the Explorers Club. It was started in the 1890s as a space for single men. Not a creepy hangout, just a simple club. Cheap food, drinks, camaraderie. A place to unwind and just be around other men. It had a kind of low-key dignity to it. But over time, cultural pressure chipped away at it. As girlfriends became more common, so did the idea that men spending time away from their partners, especially in male-only spaces, was suspicious or selfish. Men got shamed or nagged for going. The club eventually introduced "Bring a girl Saturdays" to smooth things over. The women liked it. They came more often. Then they joined the board, showed up daily, and pretty soon it wasn't a men's club at all. It was just a bland co-ed bistro. No different from any other overpriced spot in town. It's not that women ruined it on purpose. It's that the whole culture now treats male-only spaces as something inherently bad or outdated. Even if such a place existed today, you'd probably catch flack just for going. That's part of the fatigue too. The constant pressure to explain or justify anything that's just for men. Not every man wants to talk about his feelings over tapas. Sometimes we just want a quiet place to sit, talk casually, or say nothing at all without having to censor ourselves or perform a version of manhood that fits someone else's idea of progress. That's the kind of women fatigue I feel sometimes. Not about romance, just about space. Story 6. A Reddit subreddit called Ask Men introduced the answers from men only flair because users were tired of women answering questions addressed to men. Story 7. In the 20 years I have been trying to date, I have only experienced rejection, and most women would not even bother talking to me. Story 8. Financial exploitation. I am so tired of women feeling entitled to my many hundreds of dollars in annual income. Story 9. I spent years trying to be the supportive, good person. Then I was told I was too emotionally available, and she was not used to that. I do not even know what people want anymore. Story 10. But come over here saying, it's not a gendered thing. Men do it too. Anytime women are unfairly generalized, yet will upvote the same unfair generalizations about men and not say, it's not a gendered thing. Women do it too. As I said, men do this too, and it's not all women. When a woman talks about a man not taking rejection well, typical male behavior, that's men for you. What else do you expect from men? When a man talks about a woman not taking rejection well in the same context, whoa there, it's not a gendered thing. Men do it too. Some people are just unpleasant. One more time. I know there are men who do the same thing to women too. Some people have selective biases they don't realize they have. Story 11. Asking questions to get no answers after she says I am all kinds of things for not asking questions. I stop engaging because you do not reciprocate. Simple as that. Story 12. From my dating experience, I realized that as a man, there is very little room for error. Women have the advantage on dating apps because there is almost always a line of men wanting to go on a date. Felt like if you made a mistake, you were quickly discarded. The whole reason I was dating was to get to know people better. However, whenever there was a disagreement or I did something perceived as wrong, that was the end. I was either ghosted or told we weren't compatible. Listening to single girlfriends and overanalyzing every date they went on made me realize that I needed a break from dating in general. Story 13. I am not giving up or defeated. However, the other day I traveled an hour and a half for a girl who completely stood me up. She just took the wind right out of my sails. Story 14. She says, I hate men, while having a boyfriend she treats as dispensable but secretly likes, and uses many others for overall gain. Story 15. I guess the closest experience I have is when I worked in person and shared office space in the cardiology department. All the administrative, billing, and scheduling staff were older women, and listening to their catty conversations became very tiring. They were often mean to each other over trivial matters. Story 16. I use 2 language exchange applications. I also have years of experience teaching my native language to foreigners, so I hoped I would find partners easily, but that is not the case. I used to respond to both men and women there, but I have now stopped responding to women. These applications are full of women who say they are not interested in dating. I have mentioned on my profile that neither am I. I am married. Because of this, I am often told by women how glad they are to find me, the one man who does not want to date. You would think this means they would try to work out a way to help each other. But no, they cannot even respond properly. They do not want language exchange. They want to be entertained. There is no language exchange, just chats. I get ignored as soon as I hint at actually learning something. They send one-word replies, use emojis as icebreakers, get offended if I just say hi when all they did was send a smiley face, disappear for 1 year only to return when bored, ask me a question but do not reply once I answer. No follow-up questions, no initiating anything. Sometimes they sound very interested in me and then stop responding suddenly. There is also the whole text me on Instagram thing, but when you do, they do not respond. I already have a wife, and I am not seeking female attention that I would entertain such behavior. Therefore, I have decided not to engage with women on these applications. Story 17. The desire for empathy rather than solutions can become tiresome. Sometimes, it turns into constant complaining and negativity, which I find unbearable. Story 18. The last female friend I had completely dropped me after I opened up at her request about being sexually assaulted. It was sad, but I had to accept that what I have gone through and who I am is just not what most women want to be around, including as friends. Women view me immediately as a threat, and I have to perform to get them to see me as even remotely human. So, I do not interact with them too much, and I definitely do not expect anything from them. Story 19. I love women. However, when you tell a woman that you are gay and she laughs and says, "No, you are not," it does not make for the best interaction. Story 20. My wife has always pretended to enjoy my hobbies, even though she clearly does not. She has over $350 worth of fishing gear, a Godzilla-themed model train diorama in her sitting room, and a mid-to-high-tier gaming PC that she mainly uses for printing school documents. She even pretends to take an interest in Warhammer 40,000 lore. It is all very sweet, but she is simply not interested in any of these things and eventually admits it. It is both highly endearing and somewhat patronizing. Story 21. I used to enjoy having girls in the friend group until all of our group activities dissolved because they did not enjoy them and felt left out when we did them without them. Goodbye 3-year Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Goodbye yearly Six Flags trips. Goodbye Grand Theft Auto 5. Goodbye Call of Duty. Goodbye For Honor. At least Night Rain holds steady as long as there is a new boss. Story 22. I had a 7-year relationship with a vulnerable narcissist. She almost killed me, but she taught me how to recognize emotional unavailability and avoidant behavior. Most contemporary Western women under 45 engage in daily, routine emotional unavailability and avoidant interaction methods. I simply mirror their behavior back. Expect me to send multiple messages? Too bad I don't feel the need. Expect me to make a big impression on a first date? Too bad that disqualifies me. Expect me to check in on her instead of her expressing her feelings directly? Too bad. I only engage with adults who communicate like adults. The difference between how frustrated and impatient I was before and how I am now is enormous. I have so much more time and energy in my life because I no longer invest them in people who expect me to give without ever reciprocating. Story 23. I encountered the 4th woman in a row that I met on dating applications who said, "I don't really know if I want or what I want in a relationship. Nothing upsets me like indecisiveness. I know what it really means." Story 24. Not really a story but an experience. For the first time in my life, women are pursuing me on the apps, and I'll focus on 1 or 2, but they kind of waste my time. Also, it's frustrating how you can't ever be a tiny bit unpleasant in any way. Like if a woman says something boring or a little odd, I'll be like, whatever, I still like her and want to get to know her. But if a man does, they will usually get dropped. Also, needing to carry the conversation is incredibly tiring. Story 25. Threw my hands up and walked away from dating after the doublespeak. Had someone tell me they could not do a relationship right now and then be dating a week later. We were both in our 30s at that point. At least have the honesty to say I'm weird and you are not interested. Story 26. Hating on men is tiring. Started a couple of years ago and is still ongoing. I started arguing with 2 girls the other day. Their investor is male and is taking good care of them. Their fathers are male and are taking good care of them. One had a boyfriend who is taking really good care of them. I am mentoring them for free. Yet every time we meet, they repeat all that TikTok nonsense about men being pigs, men wanting just one thing, men this, men that. I wish they were the only ones doing that. It is constant. Whenever I engage in a conversation with a female, the topic of hating men comes up. The worst part is that it is continuing across the spectrum. I couldn't find a fun movie to watch at my place without the father figure being portrayed as weak. She put on Migration from 2023. I stopped the movie after 20 minutes because I am tired of this whole topic. Story 27. Having gone through the experience of being discarded by my wife, who involved her female friends, sister, and mother to make a committee decision, I fully support this post. Story 28. I want a man who leads. So you have the green light to lead the full relationship, right? But when you try to lead in something she is not prepared to be led in, she breaks it off immediately, gives an ultimatum, and ends a fully healthy, happy, well-nurtured relationship just because she feels like she is being used, when in reality you are just leading. Story 29. Not sure if it counts, but flying somewhere south and all they want to do is lie on the beach or around the pool and tan. If that is you, you are basic. Story 30. It's not women. Women are not evil or bad or the reason for all my problems. But like men, they aren't infallible. There are bad actors who think everything women do is bad and are just misogynists. But there are also people who genuinely respect and value women and see them as equals while disagreeing with certain actions women take or viewpoints women have. You could agree with 80, 90, or 95% of what women say, but if you critique or disagree with something many women do or think, then that negates everything. You don't truly support and respect women, and you may even be labeled as an involuntary celibate. The strange thing is, if the person critiquing is a woman, then they are just dismissed as a pick-me. From how deeply and widely gendered expectations of men in the dating and courting stage are upheld by women who insist that they themselves do not want a partner that has gendered expectations of women, to expressing the opinion that the seeming animosity towards any attempt to push back against generalizations, to the point that you can be criticized for saying not all men, is very counterproductive. Not all Muslims, but always a Muslim. Hey, that black person was assaulted. Response, yeah, by a black person. This approach has never and will never work and will only push people away. The air of infallibility and the automatic defense of anything and everything that is said, thought, or done, that is what fatigues me. Story 31. I had many female friends, but I started resenting that none ever took any interest in furthering the relationship. Therefore, I stopped all interaction. It was a great decision because at least all the efforts were focused on me. Story 32. Every woman I've ever had a crush on has been extremely jealous and insecure about my having eyes for other women. I am on the autism spectrum and do not want to repress what I fantasize about or think. I have not been comfortable dating for a few years because it seems like women who develop a crush on me are going to burden and guilt trip me for who I am. Edit. I do not understand the downvotes. Do other men think they are supposed to date women who want to change them? Or do other men really find it so easy to only have eyes for one woman? It has always seemed like a performance and a lie to me. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.